Hello everybody, welcome to Streetlight Babble, where we'll be reviewing a film called... What was it again?
It's called Wonder Woman.
Wonder Woman.
Exactly.
Alrighty then, so we got a little bit of Wonder Woman, we saw it this weekend. Let's see what we think about it now. So, our film begins with a little story about Zeus and Ares. Zeus created humans, and Ares is like, no, these guys are going to be corrupt. And Ares also apparently is super OP because he killed every single Greek god except
for Zeus,
which is
pretty OP.
Pretty OP. I never really thought of Ares as that OP compared to some of the others, but whatever.
He is the god of war, but it's always been more like, he's kind of not necessarily controlling in the background, but he likes playing war around. Think of it more not as like, in traditional sense, not necessarily the devil like he's portrayed here, but more of, there's a really fun book series where it basically describes him as the kind of person who would be driving around on a motorcycle blasting Metallica, and his eyes have like nuclear explosions in them. So it's a little bit more like hardcore, whereas here he just straight up kills all the gods.
Well, yeah, he kills all the gods, and this is a story that is told to our main character, Wonder Woman Diana, who is on an island formed by Zeus for the Amazons, warrior women who are meant to take out Ares in the event that he returns to cause the end of the world. At which point it's been so long that they don't really even believe that Ares is even going to come back, or if he even exists. So the Amazons are just chilling on this island, training up Wonder Woman away from the world, when, all at once, a Chris Pine brings the world to them via plane crashing.
Yep, he crashes his plane right next to them, and he's getting pursued by the Germans, because it's World War I time, ladies and gentlemen.
Yep.
The Axis are not a thing. It's the Central Powers versus the Allies this time.
Yeah.
And basically, after a little bit, they decide that they'll send Wonder Woman off with Chris Pine to go take out Ares to stop World War I.
Yeah, Chris Pine explains that this is the Great War, the war to end all wars, so naturally Wonder Woman thinks, well, this must be Ares, so I'm gonna go out and take out Ares. And a big part of this movie is that they're trying to figure out who Ares is. Like, they know he must be like a really powerful person, so that's the plot. So what did you think? Performances. Gal Gadot,
she did pretty good.
She did a good job. Very fish out of water story in the beginning. Kind of, she's kind of like innocent to our world, but, she's like a tough warrior. She's learning. And, Chris Pine also very fish out of water in the Themyscira. A lot of back and forth on those two. I really did like Gal Gadot's performance. A lot of drama.
Yeah. I thought they were going to save the fish out of water story for Aquaman, but I guess I was wrong.
I hate you.
I know. But yeah, no, she did fine. I feel she, like you said, she kind of played up the naivete, especially once they went to the war itself.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like that probably would have been more in character with someone who really hasn't been exposed to the atrocities of war. And
yeah, she doesn't really know the atrocities of war. She's just trained for it, but doesn't really have any experience with it. So she thinks she can save everyone, but of course she can't. It's World War I, baby. Everybody dies. Chris Pine,
he was good.
Great comedic timing on Chris Pine's part. Let me tell you, very, very Gene Wilder-esque. Like whenever he was just told something that was silly, like, "Oh, I was birthed from Zeus, who formed me when my mother formed me from clay." He was just like,
"That's cool."
That's cool. Just I like his comedic timing. It was really on point.
Exactly. It was a combination of that, and he had a lot of really good face acting, just like a lot of expressions, like. Someone tells him something that's a little bit ridiculous. He kind of, you see him think about it. It's like
you see him processing it. You see the wheels turning in his head.
And he's like, "Huh, that's cool."
It brought much needed levity to the DC universe because, as we've talked about time and time again, I've joked that DC Batman vs Superman was more serious than Saving Private Ryan.
Yeah.
So. And they needed some levity because humans are naturally funny. Sometimes in dark times, humans have levity because it focuses them. It eases the burden upon their souls, and that's just how humans naturally are. That's where Chris Pine did a really good job in this movie, lightening it up.
Yeah,
especially in one of the darkest times in our history.
Yeah, World War I was a pretty dark time. Well, Chris. Next up, we had General Ludendorff, one of our antagonists of the movie.
General Ludendorff was an antagonist. And I think he was portrayed all right, maybe a bit too villainy for me, but he was kind of portrayed as the guy scheming in the background, and historically, he was kind of the guy who defeated the Russians in their first invasion, and all the credit was given to Hindenburg. Eventually, the credit was given to him, but that's kind of how he was historically in the war. He was kind of the schemer. He was the guy who was
Pulling strings behind
the background until the Kaiser gave him more power over the army. So I'd say it's a pretty good portrayal of Ludendorff, kind of the schemer in the background while being the grand general. And it was balanced pretty alright. Bit too evil for my taste, but whatever. Dr. Poison.
Dr. Poison?
Whatever her name was.
Yeah, she was fine. Just
mad scientist lady. Mad
scientist villain. That's all you need to
chuck in a mad scientist. And who's Lupin's guy? Who's Lupin?
So Lupin, he played a lord. I think his name was Lord Patrick.
Lord Patrick.
And he was kind of the main guy supporting Steve Trevor, who was Chris Pine's character. His little group as they went into...
Steve Trevor and Gal Gadot, and also they have their little Howling Commando-esque squad.
Yeah, he was kind of... I guess, I don't know how to say this other than their financer. He was kind of...
Yeah.
They started off as this...
kind of a weak diplomat.
But he hears about this weapon that the Germans have, and he's like, okay, we need to go and we need to get that. So I'll send your little crew in. I can't have any part of knowing this, but you guys need to go and you need to take care of that weapon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he did a pretty good job of those kind of weak, stuttering diplomat, but he kind of is driven to do this one thing. And yeah, well, that's most of our characters. What's next? The cinematography. Pretty alright for a DC movie. And the darkness is warranted here, because this is World War I, ladies and gentlemen. This is like, this war was a human meat grinder more than it was a war.
Yeah.
And the darkness was very much warranted here. The color grading...
It's very desaturated, which, like we said, it's a little bit more warranted here than a movie like...
Still a bit too much for my taste, but...
Yeah, I understand what they were going for, but they think they could have rescinded the desaturation a level or two and it would have been fine. But that is kind of...
It does clash well with Wonder Woman, who is very brightly dressed. So it's very symbolic. She's bringing light and hope into this war, where that's just, as I said, human meat grinder. It was there's a good documentary called Apocalypse World War I. A lot of pictures, a lot of videos from the war. If any of you are interested in World War I, I'd watch it, because you will get the full scope of just how dirty and dark and just gamey this war was. Just especially the Battle of Verdun, just a horrible thing all around. Human atrocities everywhere. So yeah,
a lot of slow motion in this.
A lot of slow motion.
It was kind of cool in the first part. There's an open, not necessarily an opening battle, but there's a battle in the first act on Themyscira, and there are some slow motion instances here, but I think it's a little bit more warranted. There's, at least it seems like there's a lot more practical effects going on in this fight. You can't see them, but you assume that a lot of these effects are taking place on wires and stuff. You see a lot of Amazons jumping around, and that was totally fine. I'm okay with slow motion in that, but as the movie went on, it got more and more CG.
That and the scene where she first kind of leaves the trenches, that's pretty good. But yeah, as the movie gets on, it gets more and more CG and more slow motion, and it kind of makes it feel like it's going really slow, especially in the climax. That's probably my gripe with the action. Although Gal Gadot does look pretty good as Wonder Woman, still kind of skinny for me, but she's fine.
Yeah,
she has a lot of powers, so I mean that I guess it's warranted, but whatever.
Yeah, it's fine.
I mean, she has the Mediterranean look, which is how you expect sort of a more Greek type person to look. So
yeah, so it's fine. Not perfect, but it's fine.
Not perfect, but it's definitely acceptable. But this did especially have a more adult nature, which was.
Yeah.
Which was kind of... It was dumb because there was a little kid in front of us the whole time talking.
Yeah, it's a PG-13 movie, which, people hear that and think, okay, it's fine to bring my kids to this. But, I mean, there's a couple of different things that go on. There's some discussions about what, whether or not you should sleep with another person out of wedlock. They talk about reproduction. There's a scene where Chris Pine is just like walks out of a bath naked, and Wonder Woman's just staring at him naked. Like, and you usually in a scene like that, someone's like grabbing a towel and they just get like a little peek, but he's just standing there in all his glory
he's
for
standing
like
there in his muscly abbed glory. Because you can't be in a superhero movie unless you're cut nowadays. That's pretty much
it.
That's the universal law.
But yeah, I definitely say I wouldn't bring my 6-year-old, if I were to ever have kids, I wouldn't bring my 6-year-old kid to go see this. It's definitely more adult PG-13, not necessarily in. Like I said, there's some sex talk in it, but not necessarily in content as much as tone.
And I mean, totally, like World War I. World War II was a very good guy versus bad guy type war. At least in pop culture nowadays, that's how it's portrayed. And I mean, that's really generally quite fair when you look at Hitler.
Yeah.
But World War I is kind of portrayed as just war is the bad guy because everybody is suffering, everybody is having a bad time, and even historians nowadays are not exactly 100% sure as to why it started. But I kind of like that this movie really did do well with that theme, that war itself is the villain.
Yeah.
That it isn't necessarily, like at first, it kind of makes you think it's the Germans, but it is really war itself that's the villain in this film. And I think I really like how they did that with World War I. At first I was kind of worried that it was just going to go, this is the bad guy. But it's a little bit more ambiguous, a little bit more philosophical, which is why I kind of want to see more World War I in media, and why I was pretty happy to see this film.
I would too. I mean, we got a lot of movies from the Greatest Generation depicting World War II. I mean, like you said, exactly like you said, it's a lot easier, a lot more cut and dry, morale-wise. You got one side that's good guys, one side that's bad guys. Whereas World War I era, it causes a lot more introspection.
Yeah, a lot more introspection just to the human condition. And actually, Chris Pine has pretty good speeches, like about. Yeah, humans are shitty. When Wonder Woman's kind of having a little situation, but yeah, all in all, pretty good movie.
Yeah.
What's your final thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's a good movie. I think a lot of people are really gonna enjoy this movie. If you like the Wonder Woman character, you're gonna love this movie. I definitely think it's not a perfect movie. I definitely had some problems with it, particularly cinematography wise. And kind of some stuff that happens later in the film. I feel like the first 2 acts are really solid, and then the third act it kind of all unravels, which is why I'd give it a 6 out of 10.
I might agree with 6 out of 10. I was kind of being pulled out of it, kind of thinking about it a bit too much. Maybe it was because there was a kid talking in front of me. Maybe I'll like it more.
Yeah, just watching it by myself.
By myself. Oh, and if any of you are worried about, like, if it's too much into the whole feminist thing, it's pretty egalitarian. Although it does do a lot of commentary on the state of women back then, it's very back and forth between men and women. They have the guys have something to teach Wonder Woman, and Wonder Woman has something to teach the guys. It's always back and forth. They help each other out.
There's a scene
pretty
where,
egalitarian, so don't worry about that.
Yeah, exactly like I said. There's a scene where Wonder Woman's fighting someone, and someone sneaks up on her, and Steve Trevor takes him out to help her, and vice versa. There's a scene where Chris Pine's distracted by something. Wonder Woman will go and she'll like block a bullet with her wrist gauntlets, and it just goes to show that they work really well as a team, as we all should in this 21st century.
Well, I suppose we all should, if we're to keep another great war from happening. So yeah, about a 6 out of 10 is what we'll give it. If you're a fan of Wonder Woman, you'll like it. Maybe I'll like it more in the theater. There isn't a kid talking the whole time, but we'll see. We'll see. All our minds change on it, but I liked it. Pretty solid superhero movie. Hopefully DC is going to start that uptick, and we'll see you for that spoiler review, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes, there's a lot in spoiler corner, so stay tuned.
And there's going to be a lot of spoilers to talk about. We didn't even scratch the surface of the spoilers, because there's just a lot there, so yeah.
Bye!